In this video, I want to show a very simple way to create an import from a text file to a SQL Server table. I've created a Visual Studio project called FileToSQLETL, extract, transform, and load. And it's got one package in it. From the toolbox, I've drag and dropped a data flow task onto the control flow surface. And I'm going to go to the Data Flow tab where I want to set up a source and a destination. Now the source is going to be a text file. I can go down here and choose Flat File Source. That is going to be my flat file source. I'll drag it on there. And I'll need to configure that first before dragging on the destination. In order for this to work, I need to have a flat file. So let me take care of that. I'm going to create on my C drive, under Data Files, I'll create a new text file, and I'll call it Test Data. Put in some test data. Okay, and save it. The fact that it's a TXT file or a CSV, because it's separated, the data separated by columns, it doesn't really matter. When I change it to a CSV file, I may see the Excel icon show up, and that's because Microsoft normally maps the Excel application to CSV files, but it hasn't changed the file in any way. It's the same file as it was. It's just that the extension is different. Okay, since many times you're using a CSV file anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. Now I've got the test data, so I can come over and configure the flat file source. Click on it and make a new connection to it. When it comes up, I can change the name if I want to, but the important part is to browse to the file. Change the TXT to CSV. Locate the file I want to import. And then if the column names are in the first row, you want to leave that checked. In this case, they are not, so I want to uncheck that. And if I leave it checked and I go to the preview, I'll see that it's using that for the column headings. That may not be obvious, but it is. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to uncheck that. And when I go back to preview, now it's obvious. You've got column 0 and column 1. I'm not advocating by any means that you should not put column headings in there. I just want to use this as a demonstration. Always check the preview. That's a real good move. And then check out the columns too to make sure that they make some kind of sense, that you can actually see that they did indeed separate things correctly based on a comma. Another option that's useful is to look at the data type that was chosen. It assumes that the data type I'm using is character data, or a string of characters, in both columns. Now I know for a fact that the first column is an integer, and if I wanted to, I could change it over to a different data type. For simplicity, I will often import all the data in as a string into a staging table. That is probably the simplest way and the least prone to error. And then later on, once I have it in a staging table, which is an intermediate table for where it's actually going to go to in the end, I will grab the data from the staging table, move it to its final destination, and transform the data at that point in time. It's a preference, but I find that that's the easiest way to go. In this example, I want easy, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it as it is. Next, we need a place for it to go, and the place we want to go is our SQL Server destination. I drag and drop the line this actually includes metadata that my SQL Server destination control actually will use for its configuration. So it's very important that you always connect the line before you try to edit this or open it by double-clicking. We don't have a connection, so we're going to need to make a new one. I'm going to use the ever-present tempdb on my local computer for this example. Hitting the test connection is always a good idea, but to tell you the truth, if the drop-down box worked, you're connected. Now, I haven't a table created yet to receive that data, so I need to create it. I can create it here by clicking on the new. It will give me a suggested table reference, but quite normally I would have this done previously. So I would have had a database set up, a table set up in the database already, and I would want to connect to that. And since that's more typical, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, now that Management Studio is open, I'm going to make a new query window. Focus on the tempdb and create the table. I'll put in an ID column, and I don't want to make it an integer, even though I know it's a number. I want to make it character data. In SQL Server, I can use varchar or in varchar if I want to use the new version of varchar, which is has 2 bytes per character. Since that is more common nowadays, I probably will go ahead and use that. I don't think we're going to need more than 10 or 100. I can't see that ever happening. I could go ahead and reduce it down to 10, but to tell you the truth, it automatically collapses anyway, so I usually just make it as general as possible. 100 is good enough for me, and I'm going to do the same here. So, I don't know, my data. It may look inefficient, but again, it's going to efficiently collapse down to its smallest size automatically. Create the table, and that table now, is of course empty. But we're going to fix that momentarily. So now I use the drop-down box and I can see my table. I want to now click and hit preview if I want to, but there's nothing in it. And now I want to go to mappings. And because the column names are different, it won't automatically map. It's easy enough to do. Just choose the drop-down box and choose the mapping. The lines will show you that it's mapped. And there is some other stuff you could do, but in general, you're pretty much done. You can test it right from here, but it may have an issue with conversion. According to this, cannot convert between Unicode and non-Unicode data types. Let's go back and take a look at that. The metadata coming through here says that this is a DT data type string. Now, if it was Unicode, it would be data type wide string, or WSTR. This means that my idea of using Unicode has come across a problem. I can either remove this and recreate the table, or I can do a data conversion. And I have to say that the most common issues that you have with importing text data like this is data conversion issues. Now, luckily for us, there is indeed a data conversion tool that we can use. Let's see. I want transformations, data conversions, common. There it is. And it's just right here. But the problem is that when we start changing things in this pipeline, I really strongly recommend you delete the destination. Then drag the conversion piece on. Connect the conversion piece before you, and configure the conversion piece before you configure the destination. I have found that to be the least likely to cause problems. We're going to choose that both of these are to be converted into widestring Unicode. Now, I'm not sure I really need to do this. I could have actually, again, changed the table. I just want to show how this is done because it's such a common issue. Okay, it's going to make a copy of the column. I'll leave it at its default. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get that other source back here, the SQL Server source. Other destinations, SQL Server destination. There we go. We'll now connect the data to our new SQL Server destination. Again, I deleted the first time, so I want to make sure that I delete it before I try to configure it. I point to the same table, come over to mappings, and this time I'm going to choose the copy, because the copy is in a different data type. It's a wide string. I know that because I just configured it, and you can see this if you double click on the line, you look at the metadata. The original columns are still in a single byte normal string. The other copies are in a wide string. That's it. I can now execute it. It will copy the data from my file and put it in my staging table. Guess I should wait until it finishes. Uh-oh. I got an error message. Let's go take a look at what happened. Let's see here. I do not see the window, output window. Well, that's right, because I put it off to the side. Okay. According to this, processing the file failed. You may need to run this as an administrator. There are indeed tasks that demand that. We'll try that. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to make sure I save my work because I don't want to lose my work. I'm going to close down Visual Studio. I'm going to open up Visual Studio. This time, when I do, though, I'm going to open up running as an administrator. This will elevate my permissions. Okay, there's my one data flow. And I can tell that I'm running as an administrator. There's a little icon over here. I'm going to try this again. This time it worked, so the error message was indeed correct. Normally the output window lives down here. I just find it easier to read when it's off to the side. I'm done with this package, so I go ahead and stop it. Click on this link or that little red box up there, and I'll go over and check to make sure my data is in the table. It is, and I'm done. So it's pretty simple, but there's a few little things to watch for, and hopefully this video helped you out if you were trying to do this and having some issues. Thanks for watching.